All right, so let's continue. Today should be the final part of quadratics. Right?
Papa Boa and Vihan ran until the sun began to rise. When it was safe they stopped, and Papa Boa explained to Vihan that while he doesn't care much for humans, he could not let the cult sacrifice him. Also he explained that the Lagahu is his sworn enemy as it harms and eats his animal friends.
Right, so as you remember, yesterday Papa Boa had saved Bihan from being sacrificed to the Lagahu by a very strange cult, right? People who wore tuxedos and wore strange green masks. Okay? But Papa Boa is not really Bihan's friend, right? He explains that he doesn't really care for humans too much.
Papa Boa looks at Vihan, warns him that if he harms any of his animal friends in the forest he will conjure a terrible vengeance on him. He also warns Vihan that he is a man of his word.
All right, so Vihan is left, he's safe relatively now, but it's up to Vihan now to exit the forest, find his own way out of the forest. And of course, Papa Boa, a lover of animals and whatnot, warns Vihan, no matter what, do not harm any of his animals. All right, so here's a revision question. Last week I explained that there are more than one ways to restate or rewrite a quadratic. And one of the ways is to express the quadratic in vertex form. And I mentioned that some teachers, to do this topic, they teach it by completing the square. I do not teach that method. I explained last week that this method is way easier. So I want you all to take this quadratic and express it in vertex form using the formulas that I provided last week. Your job is to find H and K using the formulas. And I just letting you know, completing the square would accomplish the same task, except completing the square, as you all know, everyone complains about it. It's really difficult. So my advice is use the formulas instead to get out these types of questions. Good luck, and I'm giving you a 5 minutes head start. Exist. So when you have the quadratic, well, A is how much? Positive 4. Remember, B is not 5. B is what? Minus 5. You can't forget that minus. And C is not 12. C is minus 12. And like I said, a lot of people are just ignoring the minus sign like it doesn't exist. So let's calculate the H value. The formula is B divided by 2 multiplied by A. That allows you to calculate the H value. B is how much? Minus 5. And A is how much? 4. So you get a minus 5 divided by 8. I'm going to leave it as a fraction because I'm using the exact values, right? I know some people might round that off to not round it off, put it as a decimal, minus 6.25. If you put it as a decimal, use all the decimal places, which is, it's easier just to put a fraction in this case. Let's calculate the K value. Well, just replace the letters with the, move this across here. Oops, this now, right? A was how much? A was 4. C is minus 12. B is minus 5. And A is 4. So let's work this up, right? 4 by 4 is 16. 16 by minus 12. That's not it. 16 by minus 12. When I work out this brackets, I get minus 192. You have a minus sign here. And minus 5 squared. When you square anything in the world, you get a positive value. So minus 5 squared is minus 25. So I'm getting minus 92 minus 25. I'm getting minus 167 here and 16 here, right? I know if you take this and divide it by this, you're going to get a crazy decimal. So I am going to leave it as an improper fraction. I know some people might put it as a mixed fraction. Well, not a problem with me. If you want to put it as a mixed fraction, right? That's the one. Making sure some people have that. Somebody said I did it wrong. I'm going to double check it, right? I'm just going to double check it. Maybe I'm tired. So A is 4. B, oh yes, I did it wrong. B is what? Thank you for the person who told me. No, I had it correct. 4A, C. I have it correct. Minus B squared. All right. 4 by 4 by 12. I'm getting back minus. All right, I'm going to check the comments. 192. Oh, right. This is the mistake here, right? Minus 192 minus 25 is minus 217. My mistake, guys. My mistake. Yes. Right? So that was my mistake. And if you want to put it as a mixed fraction, it will be, oh God, I don't know why this now, guys. I think I'm making a mistake here this now. If you put it as a mixed fraction, you get minus 13 and 9 over 16. Either use this or use this. I don't think it can get any simpler than this. Okay? So it's just a substitute in the values now. Remember, they wanted us to express it in the form ax plus h squared plus k. A is how much? 4. X plus h, how much is h? H is, well, remember, I know it have a plus sign here, but when you put h here, remember, h is what? Minus 5/8. So a plus and a minus will ultimately give you a minus. So you have to simplify it. Huh? A plus and a minus is a minus. And the same thing here. K is negative. So if the formula says positive k, and k is negative, a negative will touch a positive to give you a negative. And this is your final answer. If you use completing the square, you'll end up with that same thing. You cannot use the decimals because if you put it as a decimal, you're going to be tempted to round it off to 2 decimal places. That's really not a good idea. And I have a question like that, right? So just to repeat and to get it on the recording, right? The k value doesn't have to come last. The k value could come first. If the examiner wants you to put the k value first, he will say express it like this with the k in front. But usually when the a value is positive, like in today's question, the k value will come last. If the a value is negative, most likely the examiner will tell you to put the k value first. To me, I don't even know why they just make a fuss about it. To me, if I had to do this topic, I would always put the k value last to make it easier on the students. But I'm not in charge of CSEC. Right, so let's move on. Right, and I'll make sure and show you an example of that. Right. So this is a question now, right? They can ignore the graph. It's not really too important. Remember, last week I told you that you don't have to use H and K. You could use any 2 letters. Today, instead of using H and K, they're using P and Q. You notice in this question, the A value is negative. Look at it here. I tried to trick you. A is how much? Negative 2. B is whoever is touching X. B is negative 12. And whoever doesn't have X is what? C. When the examiner asks you to express it in vertex form, but Q is representing K, you notice how the Q came first? That is because the A value in today's question is negative 2. And you notice how A is negative 2? The examiner already put the negative for the A. So when you put in the 2 here, the examiner was so nice to put the negative for you. So you just put a -2 here. You think you can calculate the p-value, which is really h, and the q-value, which is really k? Like I said, you don't have to use h and k. H and k are the most two popular letters, but you can use any two letters there. You can even use b and c, but the b and c represents h and k. I know what you all are thinking. I know what you all are thinking. Why CXC or maths just can't decide on two letters and never change those two letters? That's just how life is. You think you all can finish off this question for me? Calculate P and Q for me. So let's calculate the p-value, which is really the h, right? So I already circled A, B, and C. Remember, A doesn't have to come first, B doesn't have to come second, and C definitely doesn't have to come last. Whoever is touching x squared is A. Whoever is touching regular, boring x is B, and the item without x is C, right? The examiner will try to trick you like that, just like that in the exam. So let's calculate the p, better known as the h value. B is -12 and A is -2. So -12 divided by -4, right, is +3. How that look in there? +3. Right, the working is over there, right? I think some people, even though I have A, B, and C circle, a lot of people are still thinking A is -12 because it comes first. As I just explained, that is not the case. A is how much? I calculating the Q value, which is really the K value. Q is how much? Q is 4A -2. C is minus, and I'm double checking it because last time I made so much mistakes. -2 -10. B is -12 and A is -2. 4 by -2 is -8. -8 by -10 is +80. You have a minus sign here. And -12 squared. When you square anything in the world, you'll get a positive value. And well, 4 by -2 is -8. So let's work out it up. 80 minus 144 on top, I'm getting -64. And 4 by -2 is I'm getting +8 here, guys. That is what I'm getting. I think a lot of people got the same answer. Right? Right. So all we have to do now is go over here and substitute the Q and P values. So if you look over here, I kind of laid it out already. The Q value is going here, which is +8. The examiner already put in the minus sign. Number is -8. But in this question, the examiner has already put in the minus sign for the 2 already. So you just have to put 2. I know it's kind of strange, right? But you just have to put in the 2. P is how much? 3. This is your final answer for the examiner. Right? So once again, whenever A is a minus, the examiner will tell you to put the K or Q value first, and he will put the minus sign in preparation for you to substitute just the number for A. He will always do it like that in the exam, right? You don't have to put -2 here, so 2 minus signs touch. It's a real strange thing in maths, but only in this particular question, the examiner already puts the minus sign for you, and you just have to put the number here now. Right? It's one of the things I already do agree with. Right? Right? So it's a strange thing, just go along with it. Right? So take down what you need to, and let's move. Right? Someone asked, what's the bottom brackets for? This is just extra stuff I thought I would have needed, right? So don't worry about that. This here is the final answer. Right. Now, if someone were to ask you for the line of symmetry, I'm just going to show you how to do this question, right? Anytime they ask you to find the line of symmetry, you just have to find the highest or lowest point. And all the line of symmetry is just a vertical line going through that vertical point. If it was a smiley shaped graph like this, like if instead it was a smiley shaped graph like this, the line of symmetry, like how this is the lowest point, you just take your ruler and draw a vertical line going through that vertical point. If it's a maximum point, it's a vertical line going through that maximum point. And if they ask it for the equation of the line of symmetry, the equation, here's how to memorize this formula, is x is equal to minus b divided by 2a. And you just substitute in b and a here. I'll do it for you. B in this question is minus 12, and a is how much? Minus 2. So the formula has a minus sign here. So when you substitute in b here, two minus signs will touch to give you a positive, right? 2 by minus 2 is minus 4. The final answer is x is equal to minus 3. So whenever they ask you for the line of symmetry, you just draw a vertical line through the maximum or minimum point. And to calculate the equation of the line of symmetry, the formula is x is equal to minus b divided by 2a. And you just simplify. This here is the equation for the line of symmetry, right? So I don't expect you to draw, you can just draw a makeshift graph here and take down the thing in yellow and the equation. Don't worry, guys, we get a lot of practice when we do any past papers on this. I'll keep refreshing your memory on this. Right. I have a good feeling after the Christmas vacation, we're gonna come back with blank minds here. Let's move on. Uh,
Papa Boa had no trust in humans and secretly followed the boy. Soon enough Vihan saw a ripe mango low enough for him to grab and eat. He was hungry, and took a stone and hit a bird who was also trying to eat it.
All right, so if you all can look in the picture, you'll see Papa Boa somewhere in the left-hand corner, right? He doesn't trust humans, and he has his instincts are telling him that Vihan will end up hurting and one of his animals. And you see what's going on here. Vihan is hungry, he's scared, so he fights a bird with a stone for the food. And he pops out from the bush. I think Papa Boa has some issues going on there. Some anger issues. Right.
Vihan felt ashamed and continued to walk to try to find his way out of the forest. Unknown to him, Papa Boa was once again secretly following him and had conspired with the animals of the forest to take its revenge. While walking towards the riverbank to drink some water, a snake emerged from the mud and bit Vihan.
All right. So Papa Boa has conspired with the animals to take revenge on Vihan. Pretty harsh punishment for stealing an apple in the forest or whatever it was, a mango. Poor Vihan got bitten by the snake there. All right. So let's review factorization. We're going to be here a while because I'm going to start factorization from scratch. Factorization is all about putting things in brackets, right? It's all about putting things in brackets. And let's put it this way. Let's say that I have 4a minus 8b. We know we can't simplify that, right? Because one has a and one has b, right? You just need to pay attention, right? You don't have to write down anything, right? You just pay attention, right? You notice that you see something kind of similar in both of them. Like you see a 4 and you see a 8. You know 4 could go into 8. So in school, they will say, well, we're going to pull out 4. But your teacher is just saying that, like, we're going to pull out 4. That is not a mathematical term. Pull out something. I mean, how that going to fit into maths? But it's just, it's basically, it means that if you pull out 4, right? You know what you're really doing? You're pulling out 4 outside the brackets, but pulling out 4 really means you're visiting everybody individually and dividing them by what you decided to pull out. So if you decided to pull out 4, that means you are visiting him, dividing him by 4. And then you are visiting him and dividing him by 4. Pulling out 4 once again means you're writing 4 outside once, and you put your brackets, and then you secretly visit everybody and divide them by whatever you're pulling out. Let's simplify this. The 4 and the 4 will cancel out here, leaving you with a minus 4 into 8 is 2. So you get what? 2b. That is what pulling out 4 means. And usually you pull out something that's kind of related to both of them. The relationship here is you realize 4 could go into 4 and 4 could also go into 8. So I guess you have to use your primary school knowledge here to kind of see the relationship. I want to leave that one on the screen and I'll put one next to it. How about this? If you have 5a minus 30x, well, immediately you know 5 could go into 5, and you know 30 is a factor of 5. You know 5 could go into 30, right? So instinctively, you see a relationship, you'll be like, aha, I'm going to pull out 5. Because I know 5 could go to both of these numbers without leaving a remainder. So whatever you decide to pull out, you write it outside once, and you put your brackets. To figure out what goes in your brackets, you visit everybody and divide it by whatever you decided to pull out, which is 5. 5 cancel out with 5 to give you 8. And 5 into 36. All right? Easy so far, right? Whatever you decide to pull out, you write it once. Now, here's the thing in maths. When you decide to pull out something, right? You just decide to pull out the most convenient number. But you know in maths, you don't have to do that, right? You can pull out anything you want to know, and it will be mathematically correct. Let me show you. Let me show you what I mean by that. That you don't have to pull out a convenient number. Let's say somebody say factorize this. Let me call it 4e. I know I'm using 4 and e and things like that, right? And let me call it 8m. And instinctively, you will decide to pull out 4 because you know 4 could go into 4 and 4 and you're going to 8. But you don't have to do that, you know. You could pull out any number in the world. If you decide to pull out 5, you could pull out 5. You know. It has no rule in math saying you have to pull out a convenient number. If you want to pull out 5, fine. You pull out 5. But what does that mean? That means you are secretly visiting everybody and dividing them by how much? 5, right? 4 divided by 5 is 0.8. Don't forget to put the a. 8 divided by 5 on your calculator, I think is 1.6, and don't put the m. You allowed to do that in maths? You could do that. It's just nobody in their right mind would pull out an inconvenient number, right? you would much rather pull out 4 because that's just easier to deal with. Okay? Right. So here's the next thing now. Let's say you decided to do the normal thing, to pull out 4. Fine. You pull out 4, which is the normal thing to do, right? You divide him by 4, divide him by 4. You'll get 8 minus 2m, right? Because the 4 and the 4 will cancel out, 4 and the 8 is 2. But why did we decide to pull out a positive number? Why pull out positive 4? Why not pull out negative 4? I'll tell you why. Because you like positive numbers more than negative numbers. Nobody likes to deal with a negative number unless you're forced to deal with it. But you know, sometimes in maths, like if they give you this same question, sometimes it's more useful to pull out a negative number. And you must be wondering, well, when is it more useful? How will I know it's more useful to pull out a negative number rather than a positive number? The short answer to that question is experience. It just have to do enough questions and eventually it is realized, wait now, pulling out the positive number is not the right option for this question. I should pull out the negative version. So here's the thing. If instead of pulling out positive 4, I decide to pull out negative 4, which I am allowed to because I just showed you, you could pull out anything in the world. So who's to say I can't pull out negative 4 instead of positive 4? But if I decide to pull out negative 4, then I am secretly visiting everybody and dividing it by what? Negative 4. 4 divided by negative 4 is minus 1/8. You don't have to put the 1, right? And minus 4 minus 8 divided by minus 4 is positive 2m. You realize the two answers look almost the same? Almost the same. When you pull out positive 4, you get positive 8 and minus 2m. But when you pull out minus 4, you notice the signs inside the brackets are opposites. You get minus 8 and positive 2. You get the same numbers, except the signs are the opposite. And getting the opposite signs sometimes is more useful, right? Once again, after it's experience, right? It's experience. Right. So we're going to take it the next, and then as a gradual build-up. Factorization is a crazy topic, right? Right. So let's see if we could, sometimes in maths, right? It's, you don't even have to think about what's the best option to pull out. It's like so obvious. Like sometimes if you see two same things, like exactly the same thing, instinctively, you should pull out that. So let's say you see this. How about if I have mx minus 6x, and I ask you to factorize that? Immediately, and you see something that's exactly the same, one has an x and the other one has an x. Immediately, you know what to pull out there. X. If you are pulling out x, that means you divided him by x and you divided him by x, right? So the x and the x will cancel out. The x and the x will cancel out. He'll give you m minus what? 6. All right? But you don't even have to go through that, like the dividing thing. Once you see two same exact things, write the same exact thing outside the brackets, and you'll just be left with the m and 6. You can just probably do the division in your head. For example, if you see b, 2b minus 2k, and immediately you see a 2 and a 2 here, those two things exactly the same, there's no difference. You will instinctively, I just want you to pull out the 2. If you're pulling out the 2 from here, you'll be left with b. When you pull out the 2 from here, you'll be left with what? K. And by the way, I'm just asking, let's say you pull out 2 and you get b minus k. But then you say, all right, instead of pulling out positive 2, just for today, I want to pull out negative 2. You really think you need to go back and do all your work here? No. If you decide to pull out the negative version instead, like instead of pulling out positive 2, you decide to pull out negative 2. You get the same B and K, but the signs will become the opposite. The positive will change to negative, and the negative will change to positive. You just get the opposite signs when you decide to pull out what? The negative version. So that's a little shortcut. Once two things have the same exact value, you don't have to waste time dividing each one individually. You could just literally pull out the two same items and write it once on the outside. So let me show you how that can be useful now in a real strange situation. If I have K smiley face minus B smiley face, I know this seems really crazy, right? You all see anything looking the same there? I see two smiley faces that look exactly the same. So here's what. Since he's the same and he's the same, I write the smiley face outside once. And what I'll be left with here? K minus B. Because I'm pulling out the smiley face from here, I'll be left with K. I'm pulling out the smiley face from here, so I'll be left with B. And just in case, I just saying just in case, I changed my mind and wanted to pull out minus smiley face, I don't have to go back and do any working. I will get the same answer here, except the positive K will change to negative K, and the negative B will change to positive B. Now, if something strange like a smiley face, and a smiley face is strange in maths, right? If you could pull out a smiley face because the two smiley faces are exactly the same, let me put something less strange for you, and we're going to apply the same concept, right? If I have X and I have X minus, sorry. If I have X squared, X minus 3, sorry, I want to take off this X here, plus 6X minus 3. And I ask you to factorize that. You all see two things that look exactly the same? Anything looking exactly the same there? Isn't this and this exactly the same? They're not even similar, no? They're the same. X minus 3 and X minus 3. Remember, this come like a smiley face, and this come like another smiley face. And I could pull out the X minus 3 here, but I'll put it in brackets, right? Because I would have two items here. And if I pull out the X minus 3, I write it once. I come like the smiley face we would write once. What would we be left with here? X and what? Positive 6. Right? I want you all to try one for me, right? Because this is the most popular situation that you're going to end up seeing. This is the one that you're going to be seeing when it comes to quadratics, right? I'm going to show you. Try this one for me. X minus, oh gosh, I shouldn't use the same exact. X plus 5 minus 7, X plus 5. Try that one for me. And send the final answer on the chat. Factorize that for me. Two things look the same, exactly the same. Fractals. The other thing I want to point out is this in maths, right? If I have the number 7, it have an infinite amount of ways to represent 7. I could say 4 plus 3. Isn't that 7? Isn't 10 minus 3 the same thing as 7? Isn't, I just doing a few, right? But there's an infinite amount of ways, right? Isn't 14 minus 7 the same thing as 7? So if I have a store and I'm selling, let me say, potatoes, and the potatoes cost $7 a pound, and you come and ask me how much for the potatoes, instead of me saying $7, I say 4 plus $3, or 10 minus $3, or 14 minus $7. I mean, technically, I'm not lying to you. I'm not giving you wrong information. All of those things are 7, It's just different ways of saying 7. Maybe that's how I was brought up as a child, right? Like my parents told me to talk like that, right? And hence the reason I get beat up every day, right? But the point is, there's an infinite amount of ways to say the same exact number. So where am I going with this? Let's say somebody has a quadratic. Let me just say the quadratic is 4x squared minus, sorry, I use an easier value here, plus 10x minus 11. I just say it. Tell me something, and I want you to focus on the middle value, the b value. If I rewrote the quadratic like this, we know a is 4, c is minus 11, and the b is what, 10, right? If instead of 10x, I replace the middle with 13x minus 3x. I want you all to tell me something. Is that the same quadratic? Yes or no? Is this the same quadratic as the one above? Is it mathematically the same? Let me hear what the class says. What do you all think about? It's the same exact thing. That was the whole point about the $7 story. Isn't 13x minus 3x? Now, he has an x and he has an x, and he can subtract those things. And 13x minus 3x is the same thing as 10x. Isn't that the same exact thing? It's the same exact quadratic. In fact, I could rewrite this an infinite amount of ways. Look at this. Instead of saying 13x minus 3x, how about I say 7x plus 3x? Isn't this the same thing as 10x? This adds up to 10x. This adds up to 10x. Right? So I'm just letting you know. Okay? That's the same thing. And yes, you all are correct. When we're doing the quadratics, the middle term, we are going to be breaking it up into 2 terms. Don't worry, even though there's an infinite amount of combinations that will give us 10, there's a way to choose the correct combination. So let's try some questions here, right? Let's have some practice questions for you guys to do together. Let's say one day you open your test paper and the examiner says, hey, factorize this for me. 2x cubed minus 3x plus 10x minus 15. Everyone write this one in your books, right? And I just want to point out one thing. In maths, right, usually you pull out the most convenient thing. Like if you have 5x squared, sorry, I forgot to show you all one thing here, right? If I have 5x minus 10x, right? You all notice that you could pull out 5 from both of them. But you notice he have an x squared and he have an x, right? In this case here, you pull out 5x, not just the 5, because he has an x squared and he has an x. So if you're pulling out 5x, you're already dividing him by 5x, and you divided him by 5x. 5 and the 5 will cancel out. X will cancel out the squared, leaving you with x. X and the x will cancel out, and 5 into 10 is 2. Right? So sometimes instead of pulling out a number, you have to pull out what? A number and a letter. Right? But you'll be seeing it all the time. Whenever you see an x squared and an x, don't just pull out the number. Pull out one of the x's as well, because both of them have an x to spare in the division process. And also, what happens when there's nothing convenient to pull out? Like if you have 4x, I just say 4x minus 7. Remember, I told you that you could pull out anything in the world, right? Like anything in the world. But not because you can pull out anything in the world means you're going to pull out something. If you see 4 and 7, you know it have no number 4 and 7 share, right? They have nothing in common. But if the examiner is forcing you to factorize, you say, I don't care. There's nothing you can pull out. Factorize it. Do the smart thing, pull out 1. Because when you pull out 1, it doesn't change the mathematical value of the question. And that means it is dividing everybody by 1. So you end up with 4x minus 7. But remember, you was forced to factorize. So you factorize, you pull out 1. Right? It's a little hack. Whenever there's nothing to pull out and you ain't too sure what to pull out 1. Okay? Right. So anyway, but back to the question that I want you to factorize. Right? I was actually supposed to do factorization in the Monday class in preparation for today, right? But I didn't get a chance to do it. So that's why I'm running through this whole thing here. In maths, whenever you have 4 things to factorize, and it's one of the most common situations, break it up into twos, into pairs. Factorize him separately and factorize him separately. And if you do everything correct, 2 things will look exactly the same. When you plan to factorize this, 2 and 3 really don't share nothing in common. But and he have an x squared here and he have an x, so you can pull out what? X. If you pull out x from here, you'll be left with 2x. And if you pull out x from here, you'll be left with 3. Remember, x squared is x and x. You just pull out one of the x's. So you're left with 2x. Everyone write that for me. For the first pair, factorize it to the best of your ability. And then you're going to factorize the other pair. Now, if you do everything correct, you will end up with 2 things looking exactly the same. Make sure and put all the signs. And when you factorize it, the next one, if it's a positive, write the positive. What does 10 and 15 share? The last time I checked, I know 5 could go into both of them. If you divide both of them by 2, not 2, by 5, sorry. Divide him by 5 and divide him by 5. And you'll get 2x minus 3, because 10 divided by 5 is 2, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. Make sure I write the positive sign, right? You notice 2 things look exactly the same, not similar, but exact. He have a 2 minus 3, and he have a 2 minus 3. What you could do, pull out the 2x minus 3, and you'll be left with x and positive 5. Ta-da! We finished. Factorizing 4 items is the most common situation you're going to bounce up when it comes to quadratics. Take it down. I have 3 examples here on this. Everyone is going to get it before we move on to the next slide. Everybody's going to get it. Right? Let's move on, right? But get ready writing on the second question. It's 4x squared minus 2x plus 40x plus 20. Remember, it's 4 items. The first 2, factorize it to the best of your ability, and the next 2, factorize it to the best of your ability. And if you do everything correct, you will end up with 2 things looking exactly the same. Give it a try and send the final answer on the chat. Let me just see how much people get it. For the first 2, right? The only thing that could go into 4 and 2 is 2, right? I know 2 could go into 4 and 2 could go into this. And he have an x and he have an x. So I'm going to pull out 2x, which means I'm dividing everyone here by 2x. So if I pull out 2x, right? X and this square and 4 into this is 2. So you get 2x here, and 2x divided by 2x is 1. And what can I pull out here? 40 and 20. Well, I know positive 20 can go into both of them, right? So I'm going to divide everyone here by 20. 40 divided by 20 is 2. Oops, I think I have a little mistake here. Guys, I think I made a small mistake. That's not so. What's the mistake I made? That's a small mistake. This was supposed to be positive 2x. Mistake there. Sorry about it. So this will be positive here. And 20 divided by 20 is 1. Right? Right? You notice they get two things looking exactly the same. They're looking exactly the same, right? Now, if they look exactly, right? So sorry what I'm mistaken, guys. I'm not sure. I'm reading through all the messages there. A lot of people got thrown off by that, right? Because how this wasn't positive initially, the two things were not looking exactly the same. Now, because these two things look exactly the same, you could pull out the same thing, and what you'll be left with here, 2x and 20. 2x plus 20. Right? And I just let you know, I keep getting the same question over and over. Is it okay to put the second brackets first? Like if you put 2x plus 20 first and then the 2x plus 1 after, yeah, it's 100% correct. You can put it in any order. It doesn't really matter. Right? Let's try another one now, a trick one, right? And this one, suppose I have a trick in it. I have 3x squared minus x minus 18x plus 6. Try that one. So for the first one, what you could pull out from these two, well, you could pull out x and you could pull out x, right? So if you divide in both of them by x, you're going to get 3x minus 1 because x divided by x is 1, and this x will cancel with the square. Now, you know 6 could go into 6 and 18, so you pull out positive 6. So if you pull out positive 6, that means you're dividing everyone here by positive 6. So minus 18 divided by positive 6 is minus 3x, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. Remember, whatever you're pulling out, that is what you write on the outside, and you have to put a sign. We are pulling out positive 6 because your mind will tell you to pull out something positive. That's instinct, right? That is normal. That is instinct. But don't we have a problem here? When we pull out positive 6, do the two things in the brackets look exactly the same? I'm talking about exactly the same. Or do they look similar? They're not the same, right? They are similar. So you cannot factorize this. But remember, I told you, sometimes instead of pulling out a positive, it's more effective to pull out a negative. So instead of going back and do the working now, if I pull out negative 6, I will get positive 3 and what here? Minus 1. The signs will change. You don't have to go and redo the working. So instead of pulling out positive 6, it's more effective to pull out negative 6. Now, Obviously, the positive sign here is understood. You don't have to put it. Because the 3x minus 1 and the 3x minus 1 look exactly the same, you pull out the 3x minus 1 and you'll be left with x minus 6. All right. All right, so let's learn to factorize quadratics. Now, this is going to hurt. This is going to be terrible. We're going to learn to factorize and then solve a quadratic. So let's start off with 2x squared minus 9x minus 5. What we want to do is put this quadratic in brackets. But what we want to do is replace the middle term with minus 9x with something of equivalent value. Remember, I told you that the middle, we can replace it. And instead of saying minus 9x, and minus 9x is the same thing as minus 8x minus 1x. Or even minus 7x minus 2x. Or even what? 10x minus 19x. We can replace the middle with so many combinations that will be equivalent to minus 9x. But there's only one correct thing to replace it with. And of course, I'm going to show you how to figure that out. In a quadratic, remember, A is how much? Minus 2, B is minus 9, and C is minus 5. I think everyone clear on that. To figure out what to replace the minus 9x with, the first thing you have to do is multiply A by C. So we're going to multiply the A by the C. A is by 2, and C is minus 5. So 2 multiplied by minus 5 is minus 10. Signs make a difference. Signs make a difference. If something is negative today, you have to put it negative. If something is positive, you have to put it positive. So the first step is to always multiply A by C. And today we got minus 10. You have to think up all the combinations in maths that if you multiply the two numbers, you'll get minus 10. The most obvious is what? If you multiply 2 and minus 5, you will get minus 10, right? What are the two numbers? And if I multiply minus 2 by positive 5, I will get minus 10. You have to get minus 10. What are the two numbers? If I multiply it in maths, I will get minus 10. How about 1 multiplied by minus 10? And that will give me minus 10. Or the minus 1 could be negative and the 10 could be positive. And all of these four combinations, if I multiply it, I will get minus 10. What you have to ask yourself now, I don't think you have any more combinations of whole numbers. What you have to ask yourself now is which of these combinations, if you add them, you will get the middle term, B. When you add them, which one will give you the B term, which is minus 9? If I add 2 and minus 5, I know I'll get minus 3. If I add minus 2 and positive 5, I get positive 3. If I add 1 and minus 10, I get minus 9. But if I add minus 1 and 10, I get positive 9. Which one of these combinations gave us the middle value? Isn't it the third one? The third one is the one we have to choose. So here's what you do. You see the two values I gave you it? Throw away the minus 9x and replace it with 1x minus 10x. Make sure I put the x over here, doesn't have the x. Minus 9x is the same thing as minus 1x plus 10x. That's the correct combination to replace the middle term with. So once again, let me just do this back. The first step is to multiply A by C. 2 and minus 5, which is minus 10. Then you ask yourself, what two numbers? You think of all the combinations, and if you multiply those two numbers, you will get minus 10. But if you add it, it gives you the middle term, the B term. And only one of these combinations, if you add them, you get back minus 9. That is how you know what to replace the middle term with. But over here, it doesn't have the x. Here, it just have 1 and minus 10. When you're writing it here, most people forget to put back the x's. You have to put minus 1. Sorry, I make a mistake there. The guys, oh yeah, you all are trying to tell me something. I'm supposed to replace it with 1 and minus 10. Oops, oops, oops. I got the signs wrong. My mistake. Positive 1 and minus 9. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. It's positive 1x and minus 10x. You think you all could factorize this for me now? Look at this. If you end up with 4 terms, right? And I show you how to factorize 4 terms, but you have to try to get them to look exactly the same. See if you can finish off the question there. All right, so if you didn't catch that, once you factorize the quadratics to solve it, you just put each bracket equal to 0. Look at it. I put each bracket and I equate it to 0. I put the second bracket equal to 0. And I just use my algebra skills to solve for x. Once again, in case they missed it. If you would have used the quadratic formula, the minus b plus or minus b squared formula, you would have get the same two answers, minus a half and 5. Okay? Right? Remember, when you throw across minus 5, you get positive 5. All right, don't worry, you're going to get a chance to factorize another quadratic. I didn't think explaining factorization would have take so long. I really, really didn't think it would have take so long. All right, let's get ready to move on, right? Hopefully the next factorization question will be easier than this one. All right, let's go. Remember, he got bitten by a snake.
As the evening turned to night, the venom started to take over Vihan's body. Soon his body grew weak and could not walk properly, and his eyesight became blurry. He has lost all hope until he heard the voices of villagers shouting as if they were searching for him. Vihan was rushed to the hospital by the villagers and was lucky to survive the ordeal. However, the doctors were unable to save his left leg, where he got bit by the snake, and it had to be amputated. It took him a few months to recover, and in time Vihan vowed to never hurt an animal again, no matter the situation.
Right, so I guess he got saved, but he had to lose his leg, right? The story isn't finished though, because you're probably wondering, who were the masked men from yesterday's class, right? Who had the cult? What does the lager who have to do with all of this, right? So we'll get to the end of the story. Try this question, guys. See if you can replace that positive 22x with the correct two numbers. I have plenty minus signs in this, so I hope you get it correct, right? Right. To keep things even, right? Steady. Always put the smaller number in the number 1 column. Like if you have two numbers to multiply now, like 1 by 10. But put the smaller number here and the larger number second. So that way everybody has the same layout. Okay? Right. The A value is minus 5. The C value is minus 8. So it's minus 5 multiplied by this is positive 40. So you have to lay out all the values. If you were to multiply them, you will get positive 40. Now, the most two obvious is what? Minus 5 multiplied by minus 8. Obviously, from up here, you can see that will give you positive 40. But won't positive 5 and positive 8, if you multiply those two, and you'll still get positive 40? What other combinations, if you multiply it, you would get positive 40? It have plenty, but I in my head, only one of them will be correct, obviously. combination. 40 things like 4 by 10 will give me positive 40. Minus 4 by minus 10, yes, will give me positive 40. But I think 2 by 20 and minus 2 by minus 20. Now, which of these, when you add it up, you will get positive 22? And it will be this one. 20 plus 2 is positive 22. So that's the one you have to choose. So the 22, replace it with positive 2x plus 20x. I split the 22 into this. It's still the same exact quadratic. It just looks a little different. Right? In the CXE exam, you don't have to list all the combinations, right? I remember a lot of people are new to this, but you can work out the correct combination in your head. You don't have to list all. You can do this in your head. But this is like training wheels now for people who never did it before. That's why I listen out all. So what you have to do now is factorize this. Now, the only thing you could pull out from here and here is x, because 2 really can't go into 5, right? So if you factorize out x, if you pull out x from here, you'll get minus 5x plus what? 2. And over here, what could go into 8 and 20? I think 4 could go into both of them, right? So if you pull out positive 4, that means you're dividing everyone by 4, right? Positive 4. You'll get positive 5x minus 2. I don't think this one will work, right? Because this and this needs to look exactly the same. But they don't look exactly the same. So to get them to look the same, you can't pull out positive 4. You have to pull out what? Minus 4. That will change this to negative and this to positive. Now they look exactly the same, right? Now, I know some people would say, instead of putting out minus 4 here, you could have put out minus x here to make it look the same. Anyone will do it once you get them to look the same. So because both of them look the same now, you pull out the minus 5x plus 2, and what you'll be left with here? X minus 4. And to the final part now. Once we have factorized the quadratic, solve the quadratic. Put each bracket equal to 0 and use your algebra skills to solve for x. If you solve for x here, when you throw across positive 2, you will get minus 2 and then divide by minus 5, giving you positive 2/5 or 0.4. And this one is easy. You just throw across minus 4, you get positive 4. Right. Right. Don't worry, I'm gonna make it. I'll show you this one to see the end of the story.
As soon as Vihan was 18, he applied to work at the new Emperor Valley Zoo, where he worked for the rest of his life. He always wondered if Papa Boa, the Lagahu, and the cult was still out there in the forest. Vihan always wondered why the villagers dismissed his story so quickly and refused to report the matter to the police. You see, the villagers ages ago had realized that if a child was sacrificed to the Lagahu, it would leave them alone for a few years. The villagers elected a group of members to form a cult to sacrifice one child to the Lagahu. They all agreed one child was better than many. The cult wore strange green masks so the Lagahu would not attack them, as it resembled it.
All right, and that's the end of the story, and I hope that will curbs the mystery behind the cult and the Lagahu. All right, guys. So well, today is the last maths class, and I know I'm not going to see a lot of you all till next year, right? We have classes all the way up to Sunday, right? So if I don't see you, have a good Christmas, a safe one, and I'll see you all in the new year. All right. Also, I know we're supposed to have that makeup class for chemistry. I will let all you know what's going on because the amount of people telling me that they're not coming back till next year. We'll see what goes on. Right? I'll just tell your parents, keep an eye on the group. Okay? So take care, guys. Have a good one. See you all next year. Some of you all next year.